Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I'm not going to be playing just one, but two all-action American hero tanks. Firstly, we're going to be playing in the M-V-Y. This is the latest American heavy tank in the game and the latest tier 10 in World of Tanks. It's great because it has a really troll turret that is kind of locked to the top of the vehicle, which means that your all-round protection is rather darn decent. It's also an incredibly small turret to be able to hit, which allows you to be increasingly cheeky. And because, you know, America doesn't stop for anything, it has two sets of tracks with a reserve track at the back of the vehicle that allows you to keep moving even if your front tracks get knocked off, albeit with much less momentum. So, how can I call this video an all-action American hero unless it is literally going to be all-action? So at the start of this game on Fisherman's Bay, we're not chilling at the back, we're pushing forwards. This vehicle, it's not slow by any means, especially if you use a turbo on the vehicle. It's now able to go about 44 kilometers an hour. That's quick enough to be able to make push plays because its power to weight ratio is just shy of 19. So you can get into position quickly, irrelevant of it being upslope. And here we go, our American hero finds the first villain, or maybe possibly victim of this game. It's an AMX-50B that probably didn't expect us to have the flanking play. Now I'm using the 105mm gun on this vehicle. I believe it's the only one that really you should choose because it has better DPM, better gun handling, better APCR pen, and better shell velocity, and also it has better high explosive anti-tank rounds, those premium rounds on this vehicle that just make this vehicle rather competitive compared to the 120mm gun, which I believe is actually a British American gun on this tank. So I can't believe, as a Brit, I'm admitting that you shouldn't use the British American gun and you should just go with the all-American gun by the looks of it, this 105mm that has all of the bells and whistles. So there we can see the reserve track actually making a pretty darn useful play there. We get hit by the artillery, but we didn't need to use our repair kit. We could just let our reserve track do the talking. Now, hopefully we've crippled the French auto-loading heavy tank in that position, but extending around that corner before my team pushes across from the north, yeah, well, we might be the hero of this battle. Well, not yet. We've got a lot more destruction that we need to cause before we can really call ourselves the hero. It might be a little bit too far. We need a few sidekicks. We need a few trusty sidekicks, and unfortunately for me, at the moment, our sidekicks have not managed to find their W keys. Nevertheless, we're going to side scrape round this corner, just have a little bit of a peek, see what we're going to get up to, and lo and behold, it's another American heavy tank, the T110E5. We lock them down, lock their tracks by hitting that front axle, and remember, when you hit the front axle of a tank in World of Tanks, you actually do double damage to the tracks. And so if you want to consistently be able to take your opponent's tracks off with a single shot, make sure you hit the front or the rear wheel. So we managed to get ambushed here by the Leopard, and I thought that my rate of fire would be enough to be able to avoid taking the second shot, but it looks like that Leopard was set up for damage per minute, and unfortunately my driver dies yet again, but we managed to heal them up. Obviously, when you've got a tiny little tank like this with regards to the hull and the turret, I use a premium medkit in this vehicle because I lose my crew constantly. Alright, we set the British heavy tank on fire with the very first shell, and it looks like their automatic fire extinguisher has gone off. But when you're shooting often with a tank like this, you get a lot of crits. And so there's the second fire within about 10-15 seconds, and the fire extinguisher was still on cooldown, crisping up the FV215B, picking up our second kill of the game, using our speed to be able to avoid the artillery shell, and finishing off the 50B that it looks like we actually might have done a substantial amount of damage to. Blind, or alternatively our team managed to deal with them. Alright, T110E5 looking for the back, now looking for the front, now looking for the back again. Clean shot, locking the American heavy tank in place. I would say that I intentionally dodged the AMX to my side, but I didn't. He narrowly misses. We pick up our first kill. We pick up our second kill. And are we going to secure our third kill on the AMX-30B platoon who's trying to catch us? Oh, yes, we are. Unfortunately, our reaction's not 100% there as the 30B manages to connect a shell into our tank. And we even get a thank you from our sidekick, the Progetto 65, who's... Oh, come on, I can't really go along with that, even though I'm trying to roleplay a little bit in my videos. Definitely not a sidekick, that Progetto. If they hadn't been there, we would have been caught out and we would have been dead in this game. So massive thank you to the Progetto for finding the W key and coming supporting. We're up to a top gun, 4,700 damage and 2,000 assistance in the first 5 minutes of this game. Just what more can the M-V-Y achieve? Well, hopefully it's going to be our 7th kill unless we get unlucky, and we are not. There we go, vanquishing half of the enemy team already, and there's still 5 vehicles left on the enemy team to be able to handle. We use our intuition to be able to switch across to a high explosive round here in case perhaps the Batchat 15558 or the Conqueror gun carriage is over here. Maybe they're going to be in this bush, but no, the Conqueror gun carriage is actually over there, and unfortunately my HE shell misses, and I kind of realized that I should have probably just fired APCR there. The 50B confirms the kill, and unfortunately it's not going to be the Radley Walters medal for us, at least yet, with our M-V-Y, but there's still a lot of vehicles left on the enemy team to deal with. And so these kind of situations are where I absolutely love this tank. You have this all-round mobility, you have the grunt in the engine. You're kind of more of a medium tank than a heavy tank with regards to the mobility of this vehicle, but definitely one of the slower medium tanks. Kind of like an M48A5 pattern before you had all of the field mods and the turbo go into the game. So we get spotted out into the open, and all we can really do now is just hope that our enemies shoot like stormtroopers. And luckily the T110E4 does. The artillery, however, doesn't. We got 1,089 spotting. But unfortunately still no Radley Walters medal for us. But how can I complain? Because now we're up to 4,000 assistance and 5,000 damage in the first 6.5 minutes of this game. And there we go. There's the Radley Walters medal. I decide that we're not going to be able to catch the Grand Vong, so instead, you know, as in true fashion for the all-action American hero, it's all about looking pretty at the end of it, right? Their hair is in the perfect place. Maybe they've got 1 or 2 more oil stains, and living up to the roleplay, the M-V-Y just completely trashed this one and looks like a pretty boy at the end of the game. At least if it's your kind of thing. But hopefully, with G.I. Joe in my tank in the T110E5, you're going to see that the M-V-Y is not the only American action hero inside this game. And I'm constantly looking at the glory of this Progetto. I mean, I'm always in awe. You know, I'm meant to be a creative person, right? I have a YouTube channel, I stream on Twitch, at least reasonably creative. But when I see people and how they set up their tanks, I am still in an amazement. Big shout out to that Progetto 66 who's called 4U2BE. I guess that's... I can't even do the elite speak. Ow to be? Ow to be or not to be? How to paint your Italian heavy tank. That's what's been going on here. I digress. Focus on what's at hand, and that is that I'm not playing the newfangled M-V-Y. The T110E5 is still pretty darn kick-ass. I probably wouldn't play this tank in ranked because of the weak point on top of the vehicle and how it's a complete disaster if your opponents are firing high explosive anti-tank rounds at you. However, if they're not, and you get into a matchup like this thing just still feels like a beefy heavy. It has really well-angled side armor, and that allows you to over-angle this vehicle and to bait your opponents into shooting that kind of American heft on the side of the vehicle. And this tank has better damage per minute, higher alpha damage, and better high explosive anti-tank rounds than the M-V-Y. So, while the M-V-Y maybe have all this newfangled technology, in a way the T110E5 still kind of does it better. Alright, so am I going to decide to side scrape against a T110E3 there? Yeah. Even though my number is higher than that tank, I can tell you my armor and my alpha damage is definitely not higher than that American beast. So great shot there against the 1390. Starting to whittle down their vision. It's something that's very important to do at the beginning of the game. Honestly, the people who can manage to hit those pesky wheels probably deserve a bit of a medal, but it's also incredibly influential in progressing the battle. So we use intuition there to reload a high explosive round to just do 466 damage, and that was a low roll to the Borsig. Now we're going to look at coming around this corner, of course, side scraping, hoping that we're going to be able to catch this E75. The T110E3 actually ricochets off our side armor, and we clap the side of that E75. Now we're going to look for the T110E3, and we're going to start to fire high explosive anti-tank rounds. These things have whopping penetration of 340 on the T110E5. It gets really good gold on this tank, and it can allow you to club through even the thickest of plates. And this poor T110E5, he gets ammo racked for good measure, but only for 61. Do you think we couldn't have done that with the first shot and saved ourselves all of those credits with the gold that we were firing? Nevertheless, having dealt with the American Tier 10 tank destroyer, now we're going after the Emil, shutting down the Swedish heavy tank. tanking a shell from the E-75, who's using a stock gun by the looks of it with the 105mm, and now turning our attention to another Swedish autoloader that is coming round this corner. So one shell in, and it doesn't matter if he has an autoloader if we catch him out like that. And the 277 realizes that he is flanked by a far more aggressive vehicle. And the T110E5, when it gets going, just has this monster DPM. Combine it with a gun rammer, combine it with vents on this tank, and you will be absolutely clapping your opponents. Of course, the armor isn't perfect, and don't get me wrong, I'm not claiming that this is probably the most competitive heavy tank in the game, but it's always nice when you're not playing like a Super Conqueror or a Kranvang or a 279E, or you're playing a Chieftain, and instead you're actually just playing old school tanks that can still do well. So we actually locked down that KV-4, managed to track him, get all of the tracking assistance, go into the town, and manage to come back just to pick up the kill as well, securing our 5th kill of the game. So in this situation, I was thinking about trying to ram the Charioteer's tracks to keep him tracked. Unfortunately now, my side armor exposed to the Centurion Action 10, I'm not feeling too comfortable and confident. I'm hoping the Object 430E will finish off the Charioteer, but he doesn't roll quite high enough. I give him a big thank you because he's definitely saving my bacon here. And luckily, looks like my Type 61 friend on the enemy team is not going to be able to catch the extra shell. We're up to 5,500 damage and 7 kills in the first 4.5 minutes of this game. Now, it's only one more shot for a Centurion Action 10 to secure our 2nd Radley Walters medal of this vehicle. What is this video going to be? 10, 11 minutes, and you've already managed to see 15 kills. Unfortunately, it's not going to quite be the 16th kill here. But just like with the M-V-Y, we do look darn pretty at the end of the game as well. So just before you all jump into the game and start grinding for American heavy tanks, let me show you the win ratios of all of the Tech Tree heavy tanks over the last 30 days of the European server. Dear, I'm not seeing any American flags yet. How far down do we have to go? And unfortunately, ladies and gents, 3 of the American heavy tanks are in the bottom 4 slots, with only the ST2 creating this bridge between the new M-V-Y and the T110E5. So, before you go and jump into the game and start grinding for these vehicles, just know that they're really struggling right now because they have to compete against auto-loading heavies that kind of have the same flexibility on a reg line like them, or more, in the form of the Kranvang and the Super Conqueror. And right now, with Chieftains being in the game, a lot of them from the Clan Wars event, and just farming up any heavy tank that they can see, which of course they get matched up against, it's a real ugly time to be playing tier 10 heavy tanks. Nevertheless, for a lot of people, sometimes it's not about stonking out the highest win ratio, but just having an all-purpose, aggressive vehicle which should be played in that way, aggressively, because one of the worst things that these tanks can do is allow the enemy to dictate the pace of the combat. Just go crazy, and sometimes you'll be surprised with how even some of the more meta tanks wilt under pressure when you don't just sit there and let them farm you. So the first game on Fisherman's Bay was an ace tanker for our Radley Walters medal, 1,563 base experience for the 6.5 minute round. We get our 2nd mark of excellence in this vehicle, in addition to the high caliber for the 6,000 damage that we dealt. So it looks like we did hit that 50B blind quite a few times. We actually hit them 6 times, doing nearly 1,900 damage to them. Next up, for the T110E5 on the Siegfried Line assault map, near 6,000 damage in this sub 5 minute game, and the 7 kills to boot gets us an ace tanker, steel wall, and a high caliber. So ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was it for today. I really hope you liked this dose of all action American gameplay. If you did, make sure you give the video a thumbs up. If you hated it, however, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments what you think about the state of tier 10, and specifically heavy tanks. And does it surprise you that all of the American vehicles are at the bottom? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.